Let's take that back road a little bit here, Micah, just for the real detailed guys among the ones that will be watching this. When you talk about like allocating out or building cost models for shared service centers, what are the typical free pitfalls that you see happening currently with banks trying to do that? And if it's five or it's two, fine. It doesn't have to be free.
One is and it's two sides of the same coin. One, they stay incredibly high level, where it's just here's a pool of dollars. Let's take HR, for example. Here are the total costs for HR department. Here's our total FTE, or total employees of the organization. So we're just going to allocate everything out. Real easy, done, call it an HR model. The other side of the coin is taking a shared service group like HR and going down to the individual cost to do a single training class for new hires, and going down to a level that in theory is wonderful to truly understand, for every action what the cost is. So if I hire a new employee, we have the onboarding paperwork, we have their initial training. Like, it's really good to understand those things. But when it comes to practicality of maintaining a model, that then becomes incredibly time consuming and tedious to manage. So the pitfalls are, we want to stay too high, or we want to get so detailed that it becomes unwieldy, and organizations will start on this road, get a year in, and realize we don't have the time nor the effort to maintain like something like this, and then they just either go way back to the top or they stop altogether. So those are the biggest pitfalls. The other pitfall that I do see is, especially with the new technologies from an IT space. So we'll get around, get out of HR and get into IT. When we think to things like cloud computing and the moving things from on-prem to cloud and those vendors, and it's trying to take and trying to use your old legacy approaches of physical assets and trying to push more of the virtual assets through that same cost model, saying, well, historically we've measured all of this by AB, storage size or location, or all of that other stuff, and now that you're working in a virtual space, they try to adopt that same methodology without questioning, is it still appropriate?
Yeah. Well,
So they
maybe now you should measure it on time units instead of, yeah.
yeah, it based on how you're either being charged or idle capacity time, or however the new cost structure is. They take it and they apply old methodologies, because that's once again the old adage of, well, we've always done this way. And so those end up being just some of the major pitfalls that we do see. And then the other is,
Maybe I can add one. Maybe I can add one here. One of the things that I see is that they want to complicate the matters in how to calculate those things a little bit too much. I'll give you an example. If you would have to allocate your HR cost out, HR also performs activities for IT. And IT, this the same thing for HR, because the HR people working on the laptops, which are provided by
Mhm.
IT. So you get a little bit of a circular references here. And sometimes they try to make that so complicated to do loop allocations. I also tend to say, don't make it too easy, just like you said in the beginning, don't make it
Yeah.
easy, but make it sort of a step down. Also allocate to HR if you're allocating from IT, or do it from IT to HR, so that you make sure that you have them both, but do not necessarily do that in a loop, because that's not really relevant in this
Yeah,
case.
I completely agree with you. And so you have the loop, the reciprocal
Yeah.
processing. You're absolutely right. Where you keep going back and forth into this calculation cycle of diminishing impact that takes time and effort. And more importantly, the more and more you loop, the less ability you have to identify where the source
Yeah,
of that
transparency
originating
gets
cost
lost. Yeah,
comes from.
and if you just do
And
a simple step down, like one or two steps, so that you still can see and can still like account for the fact that they work for each other, so you do that on a step down, but you never lose the transparency. It's a good point. Yeah.
yeah, and step down, or I like to describe it, always moving forward,
Oh,
right? So
nice.
it's the same concept of the step down, but but HR and IT are moving forward, and then they have to move forward again with their direct and then their indirect costs. But you're always going forward and you're never going backwards so that you can truly follow. And it's the same thing with the steps. The key is building a model that original dollar that enters the organization, you always know where it goes in the end when you're doing your profitability model or from a cost side, from whether you assign that to a client, a product, a banker, a channel, whatever you will assign it to, you can always track where that dollar entered the organization. Because without that, your cost model doesn't provide as much value as you need it to. Because when it comes to, okay, I'm going to cut whatever that is, I'm going to cut people, I'm going to cut processes out, I'm going to sell less products, or let's be positive. We're going to grow. We're going to hire new people. We're going to sell more products. If you don't know where that original dollar came from, you don't know if in the future that's still going to be $1, or if that's going to be $100, or if that's going to be $5, right? You don't know if you can't track from where it came in the organization.